Brace yourself because this one's going to be good. R/relationships. How my wedding day turned into a nightmare because of my own family. This happened about 2 years ago, and honestly, I still get anxious when I think about it. My fiancé and I planned our wedding for over a year, wanting everything to be perfect, from the venue to the guest list to the tiniest details. We were so excited. As the big day approached, tensions started rising, especially with my side of the family. My mother kept insisting on changing things last minute, the flowers, the seating arrangements, even the menu. We tried to accommodate her reasonable requests, but she kept pushing. On the morning of the wedding, everything seemed fine. The ceremony went smoothly, and we were over the moon. But during the reception, things took a sudden turn. My aunt, who I hadn't seen in years due to a family feud, showed up uninvited. She brought along her boyfriend and a handful of friends, taking over tables and causing a scene. My mother secretly encouraged them to stay, which felt like a betrayal. The tension escalated quickly, with guests whispering and glaring. Then, the worst happened. My uncle, clearly intoxicated, started yelling at my husband's family, dragging up old grievances and ruining the atmosphere. I was devastated. I tried to intervene, but the damage was done. What was supposed to be the happiest day of my life turned into a stressful mess. My husband stood by me, but I couldn't help feeling hurt and betrayed by my own family's actions. In the weeks that followed, I had to set firm boundaries with my family. It was painful but necessary for my own mental health and the future of my marriage. Looking back, I realized that sometimes you have to accept that not everyone will be part of your happiness, and that's okay. Get ready for a long and intense story. R/true off my chest. How I was betrayed by my best friend and found my strength. About 4 years ago, I was very close to my best friend, someone I'd known since high school. We got along perfectly and were basically like siblings. We shared everything, future plans, secrets, personal struggles. Nothing was too small or too big for us. During a really difficult time in my life, when I was going through a divorce and dealing with a lot of personal problems, I needed his support more than ever. I asked for his help and he promised he'd be there. But things started to change slowly. I noticed he was responding less and less to my messages, pretending not to hear me when I called, and avoiding meeting up. I tried not to overthink it, believing he was just busy, until I found out the painful truth. By accident, I discovered he was cheating on me with my best female friend, who was also very close to both of us. That hit me like a thunderbolt because not only had he betrayed me, but it was by 2 people I trusted the most. The news spread through our friend group, and I was left isolated and heartbroken. What followed were months of pain, anxiety, and loneliness. It was hard to trust anyone again, but I refused to let this betrayal define me. I started therapy, worked on myself, learned to love myself again, and rebuilt my life. Today, 4 years later, I'm a completely different person. I have true friends who respect and support me, and I've learned to set healthy boundaries. My story isn't just about betrayal. It's about strength, healing, and hope. If you're going through tough times, remember you can come out stronger on the other side. Get ready for another long one. R/malicious compliance. How I followed every rule my boss gave me and ended up saving my sanity and losing a big client. A few years back, I worked at a small marketing firm where my boss was notoriously strict about following company procedures exactly as written. He valued control and had very little patience for going off script, no matter the situation. One day, a major client called with an urgent request. They wanted to tweak their upcoming ad campaign just hours before the launch. They needed a quick turnaround and the stakes were high. The client was visibly stressed and pleading for us to make the changes. My boss told me in no uncertain terms, "Do not make any changes without my direct approval. I want to see everything first. No exceptions." Despite the client's urgings, I relayed this message exactly as instructed. The client was frustrated but accepted it for now. Hours passed. then a whole day. My boss got caught up in other meetings and simply never reviewed the new materials. I reminded him gently a couple of times, but he waved it off. The clock kept ticking, and the client's anxiety grew. Finally, after more delays, the client lost patience and pulled their campaign entirely, taking their business elsewhere. When my boss found out, he exploded in anger, blaming me for the lost client. I calmly pointed out that I followed his instructions precisely. No changes were made until he personally approved them, just like he ordered. He grudgingly admitted this was true. This whole ordeal was a harsh but necessary lesson for my boss about how rigid rules and lack of flexibility can kill business. Meanwhile, I learned the value of malicious compliance. Sometimes the best way to get your point across is to follow orders to the letter, even when it backfires on others. In the end, I saved my sanity by standing my ground, and although the client was lost, I gained confidence knowing I upheld my principles in a tough spot. Get ready for a detailed story about family drama and standing your ground. r/relationships, the time my in-laws tried to control my wedding and how I reclaimed my day. A couple of years ago, my fiancé and I were excitedly planning our wedding. We wanted it to be a small, intimate affair with close family and friends. At first, everything seemed to be going well. The venue, the decorations, and the guest list were all exactly how we envisioned. However, things took a turn when his parents started to involve themselves way more than we expected. They began making suggestions here and there, which we initially welcomed, thinking they just wanted to help. But soon, their suggestions turned into demands. They insisted that certain distant relatives be invited, people my fiancé and I barely knew. They wanted us to upgrade to a much larger, more expensive venue that was completely out of our budget. They even picked out floral arrangements and a menu we didn't like. At first, we tried to be diplomatic, hoping to find a compromise. We explained our budget constraints and gently reminded them that this day was about us, not just about their desires. Unfortunately, that only seemed to encourage them. They doubled down, saying, "We're paying for a large portion of this, so we deserve a say." They made it clear that their involvement came with strings attached. Feeling cornered but refusing to let this ruin our day, my fiancé and I sat down with his parents for a serious conversation. We expressed our gratitude for their support but firmly stated that we had a vision for our wedding that mattered deeply to us. The discussion was emotional. There were tears, raised voices, and moments of silence. We listened to their concerns and they listened to ours. Ultimately, we reached an understanding. They agreed to respect our decisions and step back from micromanaging every detail. The wedding day itself was beautiful. Everything reflected our tastes and wishes. Our friends and family were there to celebrate us, and there was a feeling of love and authenticity throughout. Looking back, it was one of the toughest challenges in our relationship, but standing firm and communicating honestly made all the difference. It reminded me how important it is to set boundaries and advocate for what's truly important to you, even when it means facing family drama. Here's a story about standing your ground and fighting back, with a twist you won't forget. r/pro-revenge. How I took down a coworker who tried to sabotage my promotion. I worked at a mid-sized tech company where competition for promotions was fierce. I had been with the company for a few years, putting in long hours and consistently delivering results. Naturally, when a senior position opened up, I was confident I'd be the top candidate. However, one of my coworkers, who was known for playing dirty, saw me as a threat. She started subtly undermining my work, sending emails to management with misleading information, taking credit for ideas I'd pitched, and even spreading rumors about me to our colleagues. At first, I tried to ignore it, thinking my work would speak for itself. But when I noticed my manager questioning my commitment and doubting my reports, I knew I had to act. I started documenting everything: emails, messages, and any incidents of sabotage. I also asked trusted coworkers to back me up if needed. Then, instead of confronting her directly, I reported the situation to HR with my evidence. HR took it seriously and launched an internal investigation. During this time, the coworker tried to continue her sabotage, but now every move was being watched. Eventually, the investigation revealed her lies and manipulations. She was reprimanded, and put on probation. Meanwhile, my reputation was restored, and I earned the promotion I deserved. What surprised me most was how the situation brought the team closer together. Many colleagues who had been quiet before stepped up to support a culture of transparency and fairness. In the end, I learned that documenting carefully and staying professional, even when others try to drag you down, is the best form of revenge. Here's a detailed story about betrayal, proof, and standing up for yourself. R/am I the asshole? Am I Tia for reporting my neighbor who was secretly poisoning our shared garden? For a few years, I lived next to a family that seemed perfectly nice. Polite hellos, occasional chats over the fence, nothing out of the ordinary. We shared a large garden fence, and both of us took pride in cultivating beautiful plants and vegetables. Our gardens were our pride and joy, and an unspoken understanding existed that neither of us would interfere with the other's space. One summer, I started noticing strange things happening. My prized tomatoes, herbs, and flowers began wilting and dying, seemingly overnight. At first, I thought it was just bad luck, a heat wave, pests, or poor soil quality. But after several plants died in the same suspicious way, I started to suspect something more sinister. To get to the bottom of it, I set up some discreet cameras focused on the fence line and stayed up late a couple of nights, determined to catch whoever was behind it. What I caught on camera was shocking. My neighbor was sneaking over under the cover of darkness and spraying a chemical herbicide directly on my plants. I was stunned. This wasn't just a petty disagreement anymore. It was sabotage. I thought about confronting them, but I knew things could escalate, so I collected as much evidence as possible: video footage, photos, and even samples of the damaged plants. I reported the incident to the local authorities and my homeowners association. The neighbor denied everything at first, but faced with undeniable proof, they eventually admitted to poisoning my garden. The reason? They were jealous because their own garden never flourished, while mine thrived, and they wanted to sabotage my success out of spite. The community was shocked. This family had seemed so friendly, and many neighbors had trusted them for years. Once the truth was out, the neighbor was fined, ordered to pay for damages, and banned from interfering with my property again. Throughout the ordeal, I stayed calm and focused on facts rather than emotions. I learned the importance of vigilance, documenting evidence, and standing up firmly when someone crosses a line. My garden eventually recovered, flourishing even more, and the neighborhood grew closer, united by the lesson of the incident. It was a hard experience, but it taught me a lot about resilience and justice. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more stories.